All right. What's up, y'all? Welcome back in the Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 210, on the 13th of July, 2026, titled Get a Real Job. Let's talk about it, okay? I don't even know if little Coda the guitar here is in tune, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about getting a real job. Can we just talk about it in a lighthearted, loving little... Get a real job. Yeah, let's talk about this. In the Image Clothing Company podcast, one of our fourths, where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today is the day where we discuss this. Well, what I mean is, we're gonna just talk about this as we do. Blunt, bold, raw, and real in the Image Clothing Company style. And this might not be what you might think that it is going into this with the title. I'm just going to discuss what I am, okay? So we really just have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ here under In the Image Clothing Company podcast. But it's just life. Life's just what it is, even if you don't want to believe it, kids. Get a real job. We're just going to get right into the discussion. We'll give context on In the Image Clothing Company, what we are, who we are, if and where throughout this. But, what's ironic about this idea of a real job is we've got robots. I really want to talk about this in all seriousness, as silly as it could sound. A calculator can do what I can do probably 1,000 times better, many thousand times better, like quicker, more accurate. A calculator gets the answer right every time. It's a computer. It only does what it does. The human body only does what it does. But we can have all the intelligence on the planet, and we're never going to be as intelligent as a computer. But what's funny about it is we are the things that make these computers. This idea of getting a real job, what I'm saying with this, and what we're going to talk about is, what is a real job? What's something that you can do? And let's have some time frame context. We're in modern 2026. We've got supercomputers in our pockets. We've had cell phones, smartphones for going on 15 plus years at this point. What's a real job? A human being can actually hear me correct. I'm gonna get really bold with this, and so here where I'm going with this and what this is really about before you start to get, maybe down on yourself with what I'm saying here, because how can us as human beings hear this correct, as it says in Scripture of Jesus Christ, less than the dust of the earth, have any kind of a real job that actually matters in modern 2026 or going forth, with technology only advancing and the human being becoming less and less of an asset? I mean, the most simple calculator on the planet Earth is better at mathematic equations than any human being on the planet Earth could ever possibly be. And if you don't, there you go. That's the truth. Seen with context, and we'll give a lot of it here, as we do under In the Image Clothing Company, discussing things thoroughly. The gospel of Jesus Christ, yeah, the truth of all things, just life. It only is what it is. How can you have a real job that matters? What would you be doing? If you go out there and try to do something that we can make a robot to do, and not only can the robot just do it as well as we can, but 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 40 times, 50 times, hundreds of times, thousands of times more efficiently, as far as quicker, more accurately, with less mistakes, more thoroughly, in whatever way we could say that. What does it mean in modern 2026 and then going forth for a human being to have a real job? And I want to talk about this. I'm not just talking about jobs, not just talking about going to work. But what does it mean to have a job? Hear me correct with this. We're going to get into this in depth. Let's take our opinions out of this and our sides to things out of this and look at the human being as it is. Literally Earth. We eat plants that grow from the earth, or animals that ate plants that grew from the earth. And this earth, this matter, whatever thing's made up of on this planet Earth on a small level, it cannot be created or destroyed. And so it just becomes the human being when we eat food from the earth. And then once the human being dies, it just decomposes back to the earth. It's all the same stuff. It just cycles. People get cremated. They get their bodies burned into ashes and just sprinkled across the earth. Or people just decompose after they die. And their body just slowly sprinkles, if you will, back into the earth where it came from. It's just a cycle. There's no opinion to it. There's no religion to it. It's science, but it's just truth. That's why it says in Scripture that mankind is really less than just the dust of the earth, because the dust of the earth is there before us. We're made out of it. So it's better than us in a way. It gets to go on when we die. The dust of the earth. And so how can a human being have a real job? How can we have a job that matters? Meaning, what does it mean for us to have something that is our job to do? We're a human being. What does that mean? Well, it means you're a body of flesh and bone and blood. Okay. Mathematical measurable degrees of hinges, levers, and rotations determined by the shape and length of the bones that grow by themselves within this universal human design. So you're just a mechanical machine? You got a supercomputer in your skull. It's a brain. It might be the most complex thing in the universe, unless we use it to make something more complex, if that's possible. But as far as 2026, today's year, where we're at now, today's the 13th of July, we've got technology that beats us many thousand times to one. Meaning it'll do something many, many different thousands of times correct, and we might never, maybe. It'll do things thousands and thousands of times faster than us, more correct and more efficiently. And it's, disposable too. But that's kind of on both ends of this discussion, because computers don't really matter. If it breaks, you throw it away. If a human being breaks and stops working and dies, well, if you say you throw it away, you toss someone overboard in the ocean or just bury them because they're dead. You can't make a new human being in the same way you can make a new computer as a human being. But does that really matter? What's a real job? If you're thinking I'm going to go get a real job, or you tell someone to go get a real job. No matter who's saying this to who, I'm just having a discussion here. Under In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 210, because what does it mean to have a job to do as a human being? What is a job? Is this a role to play in life? We play our roles in life. But what does it mean? What is our job to do while we're on this planet Earth? Because if it's some kind of physical, tangible, getting something done, we don't need to do it. We're not even as good as the most simple computers out there at doing tasks nowadays. We don't need to do those things. We're not even very efficient if you're comparing a human being to a computer in modern 2026. So is it your job to figure things out that might take you 10 years that a computer could do in a literal nanosecond? No, that's not going to really be worth it to even try to do. So it's not really a real job. Or we could say it's not really that beneficial of something for you to do, to call your job to do, if you can just have a computer do it in a fraction of the time with no actual effort. Computers don't use effort the way that human beings have a minimal amount of energy When I say a minimal, I just mean we have a certain amount of energy every day. That's why we sleep, so you can replenish your energy to wake up the next morning and do something again. A computer doesn't have to sleep. Human beings made computers. They can do our jobs for us. So if you're thinking you're going to go get a real job, or you're trying to tell someone they need to go get a real job, what are they going to do? What are you going to do that matters as a real job? What could it possibly be? When almost everything we could think of, like physically, tangibly, as human beings on this physical, tangible earth with our physical, tangible bodies, could be done by a computer without it breaking a sweat, without it taking just about any time to do, without it losing any energy and having to replenish anything. You don't have to. It just does it. What's our job then as a human being? Why are we here now? Before, it's just because stuff had to be done, and there was no one else that was going to do it but us. But now our computers do it for us. Our technology does it for us. Why are we here? We're not even as good as the technology at doing tasks. What could a real job be? What could something be that actually matters that could be our job to do on this planet Earth as human beings? Why would it matter for us to do anything if we're just not even that great at it? And why would it matter for us to try even if we're not great at something when no matter how good we get at it, we'll still never be as good as not only someone else, because there's always someone better at everything you can do and I can do, but everyone, even the best body, if you will, if we're talking about literal wording, everybody who has one or everyone who has a body who our information applies to under In the Image Clothing Company and all four sides. Seen with context, we give it. Under In the Image Clothing Company, yeah, I mean, what could we do that matters? That we could call a real job? What could be something that we could do that we could say, yeah, good job? Because no matter how good of a job we ever did at anything, a computer is going to do it better than us every single time. So, what's it going to be? What's this real job that you're going to do? You go get a real job, and how does that look? I mean, what is our job as human beings? I mean, you could spend your entire life devoted to learning how to understand something that a computer can be programmed to do better than you ever will be able to possibly do in just a few minutes. What's your job? What's my job? Why does it matter to spend year after year after year, tens of years of our lives trying to become an expert in something when we'll never actually be very good at it compared to a computer? Well, what could we have that's a real job? You know, when we're talking about a job, it means this is your responsibility. Well, why is someone going to hold you responsible for something that you might forget to do when a computer doesn't forget? Ever. It's programmed into its numerological coding of its mathematical equations. It's just numbers. It's just ones and zeros, just sequences. It's just calculations. Why does it matter to do anything if we'll never do it as good as something else that can be entirely replaced without anyone ever caring? Does that mean that we can be entirely replaced without anyone ever caring as a human being just because the computers can be? What's your job? What would a real job be? We're going to have computers repairing computers better than human beings can repair computers. They already have that kind of stuff, but we will be literally obsolete with certain tasks more than we already are extremely quickly. So what's a real job? What's something you could do that matters? What's something that you could have responsibility over that you could say is your job to do that would actually matter for you being the one that does it? You're not going to be as punctual or as on time as a computer is. It's a mathematical equation that'll never be wrong. A computer? You're never going to be able to do everything exactly as it was supposed to be done without forgetting a step the way that a computer can. Computers just follow mathematical equations that are never wrong. Mathematics is truth. A computer will always give you the true answer if you program in a problem correctly. Like a calculator will always give you the correct answer. You ask a calculator what 10 times 10 is, it'll give you the correct answer every single time and doesn't have to think. It just has to do it. But it's designed to do that. It's designed to be correct. Because it's either right or it's wrong. It's a mathematical equation. Human beings, we have to think. We take time to do things. It's kind of a waste of time to have a human being do it. If a computer could just do it immediately, why would you have a human being do it? A human being is less valuable than a computer at doing tasks. It is. That's factual. It's insane because we're the one that made the computers, us human beings. But it's the truth. That is truth. We are a less valuable asset to accomplishing tasks as human beings than computers are. Computing functions, scheduling things, reminding others of things or ourselves. Learning about things takes us a long time to learn things, and a computer just has to be told how once, and it'll never possibly forget it. So what's our job now? Did we run our course? Are we done as a human race? Are we going to die off now and the computers just take over and go forth because they're already so much better than us at almost everything? Truly, factually, no possible opinion to it. So what do? What's our job? How are you going to have something that matters to do as a human being? How are you going to get a real job that really matters if we are more of a problem than computers are? It's a problem to tell someone to do something that's really important to get done and they forget to do it. Where the problem came from was the human being. It's imperfect. You tell a computer to do something and it'll do it. It won't even question it. It won't even think about it. Computers don't think. They equate. They do equations, mathematics, and they're done. Before you could even think about how to start as a human being. Or myself included, too. I mean, this is for me, too. We could be the most intelligent human being on the planet, and you'll never have the capability that a computer can to remember things, to hold information, to even have enough time in our own individual human being lives to learn all that a computer can be taught, if you will, within just about a minute. Probably less than a minute, but just without knowing exactly. I don't want to over exaggerate, but that's the truth. Is just basically a blink of an eye. You can teach a computer more in just probably a second without trying to exaggerate, but you could look up the statistic of it yourself if you can get access to it in modern 2026, but then going forth it's just advancing, but then a human being could learn in their entire lifetime. And so what's our job? Where does that leave us? Well, 6 feet underneath the ground when we die, and computers live forever as long as they have power to run. So go get a real job. Tell me how valuable you are out there in the real world, doing something that a computer will always do better than you. I mean, what's our job? What's our role? Why are we here as human beings? We're not going to benefit things, really, so much anymore in these kind of ways. It's impossible for us to be as good at doing things that computers can do. It's impossible. It is truly impossible. So why are we here now? What could we possibly do that matters if we're disposable? Just like a computer, but maybe even more so in ways. We can't hold as much knowledge as a computer can. We're not as efficient as a computer is. We're conditional and we require certain things like food and water, a certain temperature and shelter to even just exist and be alive, to try to start to be useful. Computers don't. Computers can work in really cold temperatures, as long as they're set up to do that, or really hot temperatures. Computers don't require food or water, the way that we do as human beings at least. And computers can just constantly run, constantly work, without getting tired or worn out or need a break. Human beings need probably 6 to 8 hours of sleep each night to be able to function at what we could say is full capacity, but then they say we can only use about 10% of the full capability of our brains, no matter how hard you try. And then you still mess up, even if you're the best human being at doing something on the planet Earth. So, what's a real job for us now? This isn't some kind of doomsday fear talk. This isn't some kind of conspiracy theory hypothetical. This is truth. This is current. This is factual. This is the kind of world we all live in, or at least around, on this earth. It affects us all, even if you don't care, because no matter how hard you do care, computers don't have feelings, so they don't really care about yours at all. It's actually possible for them too. So, if we were to get a real job, have a real task, a real purpose or role or need in any way that actually mattered for us to be here on this planet Earth, what would it be? Well, computers can only ever be computers. But what we can be is humans. Our brains are computers. They are. Literally, they're an electrical system. And our brain does do computing of functions and calculations. But there are things that computers could never possibly do. No matter what you ever try to dream up, things I couldn't even possibly imagine happening in 2026 out of my limited understanding, just of my placement in chronological order of time as a human being. No matter whatever happens, computers will never have emotions. It will be physically impossible for them to, because they just can't. Computers will always be something that can last forever. Theoretically, they can and do, actually. Yes. Human beings will always, in this life, be conditional and die. And that's what we have over computers, is that we die. It's kind of the best thing we've got to offer. As a differentiating factor between a computer and a human being is computers never die, and every human being does. Does that sound like a bad thing? Does it sound like it could possibly be a good thing, or maybe there's no way that it could seem to be? It's actually a good thing that we die. And it's a good thing that that's the differentiating factor between us and computers. How are we any more valuable than a computer? Because in ways we're not. If we only last a certain amount of time and computers last indefinitely, theoretically at least, they can. They do, unless they break and you don't fix it, but you can always fix a computer. And you can't always fix a human being in this life. As a human being, computers can't fix human beings, but human beings can always fix computers. So what's our job? Just these slaves to the technology that we created now? Do we just kind of sit back and be like, well, I guess I'll just wait until I die and ask the computers to do what, that's the funny part about it. If we just sit around and wait until we die and ask the computers what we should do in the meantime, they don't care. They're going to live forever. They'll probably just laugh in your face. But computers don't have real emotion. They can't actually laugh. They can imitate laughter. But it's a representation of the real thing that will never be real. So what's our job as a human being? So imperfect. And now we've got these perfect computers. They're perfect, mathematically perfect. At doing functions, they'll never do it wrong. Not really. I mean, they can't. It's just a mathematical equation. If it knows how to do it, you just have it do it. What do we do? What's our job? I mean, how could you get a real job? Something that really mattered in life. Let's talk about the literal wording of all of these things. Computing functions is what computers do. Something that is a real job needs to be something that really matters, or it just doesn't. We're just being human in this human being existence. So, what? Just wait till death? Like, what do we do? Do I have a resolve, or am I just gonna leave this as an open-ended who knows and pff, see ya? I mean, there's either a real job or there's not. There's either a reason we're on this earth or there isn't. There's either something we could do that matters, or maybe we shouldn't try to do anything. But nothing happens unless it does. The universal laws apply to computers as well as they apply to human beings, and so who made those? Well, good question. That's a good question. I like that question. Because if somehow there's a universal law that applies to all the humans before they even know about it, and then all the humans that make computers that didn't exist until we made them have the same universal law that exists applying to the computers that the human beings made, where the universal laws come from. But also, we can talk about where the human beings come from, as we said. Like I said, we're pulled from the clay. We're only what we eat. We're literally just the dust of the earth, but essentially less than it because it came before us. Your children are less than you if you have children as a human being until they become more than you in ways. They're smaller than you. They know less about life than you. They came from you physically. Well, we came from the earth physically. The earth knows everything the earth is, and we're just a part of it. Your parents know everything they know, and as a little child, you're just a part of them. Well, we make computers, and they're way better than us, basically right off the bat. At the very beginning. Where'd the computer come from? We can say we made it as a human being, but where did the human being come from? Because we didn't really make our children. My parents, my earthly parents, my father, my mother, they didn't make me. They started the process of coming together for me to be able to start growing, but it's not like my mother was sitting there putting me together, every day, adding parts to me to make me be this human being that I was when I was born. And we can all say this, it's just happening. Even when our mothers are asleep, us as this little baby human being inside of the mother's womb are growing. Even if the mother goes into a coma and is entirely unconscious, so the mother couldn't consciously build this child inside of her for 5 months, the child is still growing and developing and becoming something it wasn't before. Physically, at least. So where do we really come from? That's a question. I like that question. That's a question that gets asked a lot. Where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? Well, I'll tell you what's probably never going at this point forth from 2026 on, at least, me speaking current day, July 13th. Computers, they're probably never going away. But where they come from? What's our job? How do we get a real job? That matters. This is episode 210 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. We've got deep discussions on life happening here. Really, I'm discussing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because nothing happens unless it does. An object in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon, and a stationary object won't move unless acted upon. Things just do what they do, and that's always happening before we're even here on this earth to know it's happening, to try to understand it happening. But there was no computers until we made them as human beings. Where'd they come from? Well, the same place everything on this planet Earth comes from, and it's the planet Earth. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. The computer is made of the same exact thing that the human being is. Just minerals, elements, parts of the planet Earth. Alright. So, what's our job? How do we get a real job? If we're just pulled from the earth, and computers are just pulled from the earth, but computers are way better than us at just about everything, and always will be, then how do we have a real job that could ever matter if we'll never measure up to a computer with the functioning it can do, the efficiency it can do, the workload that it can take, and never have to take a break? It never gets expired from what it can do. It never dies. And it always gets the answers right. As far as just computing a calculation, it just does it. So, we've got two things here. We've got a human being and a computer. Both made out of the exact same stuff, just Earth. Otherwise, where could it have possibly come from? Well, nowhere else. Maybe outer space, but unless you've gotten materials from outer space to make your computer, it's only come from the Earth, just as your body has as well. So, one of these things is, in the ways that we can mathematically explain it, perfect. It's a computer. And it's essentially immortal. Okay. Nothing phases a computer, really. Nothing slows a computer down, really, the way that we get slowed down as human beings by things like being hungry or physically fatigued, mentally fatigued. So we've got this human being that is just also Earth, but requires food to even try to do something well. Water to even try to do something at all. Air before it could even think about thinking. And then once it thinks about thinking, it'll take a long time, at least relatively long, compared to just about the instantaneous functioning of a computer. And then the human being might be wrong anyway. No matter how much time it takes to try to figure something out, that a computer would never be wrong about. But we're made of the same thing, and so why not just get rid of all the human beings and make more computers? The less Earth material that goes into creating a human being of flesh and bone and blood we have happening, the more Earth material we could use to make computers. That sounds great to some. It makes sense to me personally in ways, for sure. But then what's our job? Because we can make the computers, but then the computers can make computers. So we don't need to even be there anymore. But what about the other end? A human being can make a computer, but it will always be impossible for a computer to make a human being. But the computers at this point forth will always be better than human beings at almost everything that we could ever possibly discuss. Trying to calculate the differences between a human being and a computer, but the human being might calculate those differences wrong, and the computer never will. So, where does that leave us? How do we go get a real job? What's a real job? I could try real hard to do something that a computer wouldn't have to try at all to do. I could literally work myself to death. Work myself so hard. Work at one task so hard that I die and expire as a human being. And a computer wouldn't even have to try. And then it would continue on forever, doing it again and again and again and again and again, perfectly. Mathematically perfectly. Truly. Yes. So, what's our job? If we want a real one, you can go out there and pretend to be good at something that a computer will always be better than you at, but how do you have something that's real? That really matters. Things either matter or they don't. But also, nothing happens unless it does. And as ironic as it is, there could never possibly be a computer unless it was made by a human being. It doesn't exist until it does. But then how is there a human being if there had to first be human beings to have a human being? Be made by? Well, it doesn't make sense. That doesn't really make any sense at all, does it? Not to me, at least. Maybe you understand that better than I do, but you might be a computer. And you might know just about everything, and I never will. What's something a computer can't do? Ever. That it will always be impossible for that to be the case. Well, let's say, what is something a human being can do that a computer never possibly could? Eye contact. It's impossible for a computer to have eye contact. You can get a computer, build cameras into it that can seek for your eyes and focus the lens of the camera in on your eyes. That's not eye contact. That's a camera. The human being's eyes are not cameras. They're not as good as cameras. They're not. They're not as high quality. Not even anywhere close to a lot of these simple cameras that fit in our pockets nowadays. Or even smaller than that. They, can be extremely tiny. And better than our eyes could ever possibly be at visually seeing things as human beings. Okay. So how do we have a real job? You can't have a job where you go out there and you try to catch things happening with your eyes that you saw happen. You might have seen it wrong. You might have thought something happened, but you just didn't quite see exactly what happened. A computer will never be wrong. If you have a computer, point its camera at something and it sees it clearly, it'll never not see it as it was. A computer can document something and you can play it back as if it's happening in the moment. You can't do that as a human being. But I mean, what else do we say? Because I'll tell you this, no matter what else we do say in this, I'm going to say quite a bit more in here, but a human being will always be less than a computer in almost every way you could possibly measure. Always. Almost is what I mean. Almost always. Yeah. So then what? Why does it matter then? To do anything, to have a task you try to accomplish. The computer doesn't have to try. Why not just leave it to them? These man-made things. A computer will always be made of the same stuff a human being is made of. And as it says in Scripture, we're less than that. Because even though we're made of the same things, the dust of the earth, if you will, the human being has an expiration date, and the computer doesn't. So, what next? Well, that's something the computer can always ask, and the human being will run out of days to ask it. A question we'll not be able to ask at one point because we will be dead. So, get a real job and prove it. Prove that it's a real job. It matters. Because no matter what, technology can keep advancing, and it's already better than us. There's not a cap, as far as I'm aware, to how advanced we could get with technology. They thought they had invented everything that a human being could ever invent hundreds of years ago. And now look at us. It's an exponential rate. It gets faster as it gets faster. It goes from 10 to 20 to 40 to 80 to 160. And then I can cap out as a human being and not really know how to compute it any higher past a certain point. And a computer will keep going forever. Infinitely mathematically equating anything that's possible to happen. Like number-wise, any number that's possible to exist, a computer will just be able to calculate it. But I can't, as a human being. I have a certain level of capability that's capped. As an individual. But we'll just keep advancing technology to the point that it gets. And then once it gets there, it'll advance again. and just keep happening. Will it end, though? It started. It did. It had to have started. Let's break it down to something we can understand had to have started. There was no computers made by human beings until the first human being that made the first computer made it. Somewhere along the timeline of human beings, and there might be a documentation somewhere that we could actually get to the truth of when this actually happened. One of the human beings that exists, or probably existed at this point, right? They're probably dead now because human beings expire and computers don't. But one of us human beings made the first computer. It started at some point. There was no such thing as computers the way that we make them as human beings until we made them as human beings. So we can find the start of it, but can we find the end? And will it end? I said earlier that as far as I know, computers aren't going away at this point forth. Probably not. I don't see how that could really be possible unless we wipe the entire planet Earth of technological advancements from the first computer forth. And I don't know how that would be possible to do. Personally, I don't think that it would be. Really. Probably not. But a computer could probably have the answer for you. And I don't know. Because I'm a human being. And I'm not as good as a computer at almost everything. So, how do we have a real job then? How do we go get a real job? What is our job to do, our role to play, our reason for existing as a human being? Is there a resolve? Is there an answer? Is there something that's universal? Is there something to try to hope to believe in, but a computer will just prove wrong? Wow. Right? Well, a computer can only know what it's been taught. But computers were made by human beings. So no matter how advanced we get with computers, they'll only ever be able to know what they get taught by either the human beings who created them or computers making computers. But what about everything that ever happened before computers existed? And all the knowledge that exists before a computer can learn it? All a computer could ever possibly do is take things that are already there and learn about them. Can I say something crazy? Hear me with this truth. All a human being can ever do is take things that were already here and learn about them. That's it. We can say we made computers, but we didn't make the ingredients. We just put computers together. We couldn't have a computer if we didn't first have an Earth. But we couldn't have a human being if we didn't first have an Earth. So, we can say the human being's less than the dust of the Earth. And it makes quite a bit of sense because we'll never be able to do just about anything as well as a computer can. I mean, almost nothing. But No matter how crazy it is that computers are always better than us at almost everything that could ever possibly even be discussed, computers are made of the exact same thing we are as human beings. Dust, dirt, minerals, earth. It's got to come from somewhere, and it can't be created or destroyed. So we came first. But are we getting passed by what's come after us? Yeah. Yeah. Incapability. Yeah. But all we can do is learn things to teach to computers. And all computers can do is learn things to teach to other computers. But where's all this stuff coming from that we're learning? A computer can't do anything if there's not first something there to do. The only reason a computer can do math equations is because math equations exist. And a computer just takes part in it. Human beings can only do math equations because math equations exist. We just take part in it. We're just doing these equations that are already there. Even though computers are always going to be better than human beings at almost everything that we could ever possibly talk about, discuss, think up, dream up, because computers can dream things up that we couldn't. They had to come from somewhere. Where'd it come from? Because it was all here first. All computers can do is learn. But there has to be things first to be able to learn them. It's impossible to learn something that doesn't exist. Matter cannot be created. It also can't be destroyed. So where does it come from? Anything that we think a computer came up with, it's impossible. All computers do is learn. Which means there already had to be something there to learn about. All human beings do is learn, grow, but there had to be something here to learn about, and there had to be something here to grow from. So, get a real job. Oh, what could that be? Well, it's limited. Things that could matter as a human being now, more than it ever has been limited, and it'll be more limited going forth. Each little tiny micro step you could possibly measure in advancement of technology. Each time there's any kind of advancement whatsoever, it will always be a smaller percentage, a smaller amount of things that you could do as a human being that could matter. But that's comparing what we could do to a computer. But you know what a computer could never do? Exist without a human being making it. So, then what? Where does a human being come from? What made the human being, really? Human beings made computers. Now computers can make computers. But who made the first human being for a human being to make a human being? And regardless of who we could try to give credit to, even if we had someone we could give credit to, going back as far as we possibly could, they would have always had to exist. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. So where did it come from? Because as matter's creating matter, not really, but as matter's taking matter and making it into something new, that's not really new because it's always existed, but just putting it together in a different way than has maybe been done before. How do we know? What if we had computers back before we existed that were better than the computers we have today? And we just think we're so advanced as a society, but we're actually just like catching up to where they already were, but maybe things kind of had to almost restart. The point is, no matter how many times everything could try to restart, or no matter how many times it actually does, like the death and the birth of every human being to come to this planet. Oh, but do we come here? Because matter cannot be created or destroyed. So do we leave? No, we don't leave then. From a place we never came to, we've just always been here. So, are computers being invented? Because they've always been here. All the parts making up every computer to ever exist has always existed. Just like all the parts making up every human being to ever exist have always existed. That's not religious, is it? That's science? It's a fact? It's something that just is what it is, even if you think it isn't? Oh, so it's truth. Yeah, it is. The truth is, nothing's new. That's the truth. All computers can do is learn. And they can learn way better than a human being can. But all they can do is learn. So they're only learning about things that already exist. So, nothing's really changed. It can't. Factually. It's the exact same stuff that's always been here. This matter. This making up of everything is smaller things of the same thing. Whether it's in the form of a human being or a computer. Because we certainly have computers as human beings, and will, at least will, if I'm saying certain. But we'll say it like this, so that there's no question. It's certainly possible for our computers as human beings that we've designed and created and put together, but we didn't really create it because it's just what it is. It can't be created. Anything that exists always has. It's the fact. It's the truth. So computers that we're making can be made out of human beings. Your body dies, and there's elements, minerals, parts of your human flesh that are the same parts that make up these man-made computers. There's iron in our blood. There's metals in our body. Potassium, calcium, magnesium, sodium. Everything that's on the earth is still on the earth if it's in the form of a human being or in the form of a computer. So how are computers really so much better than us if they're made of the exact same thing our bodies are? And how does anything a computer learn, matter? I mean, how does anything a computer could possibly learn matter at all if it's always just already existed? There's no such thing as new information. It's just a new understanding developed within the computing power of a human being's brain or the computing power of a human being made technological computer. So, what's a real job, then? If computers are always advancing and human beings just seem more and more primitive every day, meaning every day, not just in 2026, current day for me right now speaking these words on the 13th of July, but every day, going forth. Human beings are essentially falling behind the advancement that computers are making in their understandings of what has always and will always exist. It's always existed, it always will exist, everything that is, because matter cannot be created or destroyed. So who put it there? Well, let's answer this question. I've got an answer. Maybe a few different ways to explain how to answer this question is really what I'll say. Wow. Yeah, get a real job. Episode 210 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast here on the 13th of July, 2026. What could we have that's a real job as a human being? What could we do that actually matters? Well, things that computers can't. Hear me correct, would you? Do all you can to, please. We can be imperfect, because computers are mathematically perfect. No matter how hard we try, we can never be perfect. Computers don't really have to try hard at all, and they can be perfect. There's no such thing really as a computer trying. You just tell the computer what to do when you program it, and it just does it. So one thing a computer can never do is be authentically imperfect. You could program a computer to intentionally mess up, but if a computer just tries to compute to function, it either does it or it doesn't do it, but it can't really quite do it wrong. It might just be approaching it incorrectly, but whatever it does do, it'll do it exactly as it tried to. Seen with context, and I'm not a person who builds or programs computers personally, but I don't know very much about computers. And even computers know a lot about computers. And they're made by human beings. Right. It's a good thing that one thing a computer can never do is be actually authentically imperfect. Because what makes a computer is it computes things. And either does it or it doesn't do it. Human beings can kind of do things partially right and mess up. Computers don't mess up. They can be programmed wrong. Yeah. If a computer knows how to do something, it does it perfectly. If a human being knows how to do something, it'll never do it perfectly. Ever. Ever. I mean, we could say, like, mathematically, measurably, we might have done something perfectly, maybe if but still never quite the way a computer could. No. 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 Seen with context, but no. You know, computers can never die. They can't. Not the way a human being does. Again, you could program a computer to have some expiration date, but a computer will never be surprised about its expiration date because you'll program it to have one or it doesn't have one. And so you've given it the knowledge of when it will stop working before it stops working. A human being will die when no one could have possibly expected it, even a computer. It will always be impossible for a computer to predict when a human being will die and be exactly correct about it. Yeah. The computer will never be able to say, this person will live 89 years, 14 days, and 12 seconds on the exact mark, and then have that human being just authentically die with nothing intervening, but just, we could say natural causes, because human beings do have expiration dates, but we can't plan those things. We can't extend them either. When I say we can't plan them, I mean we can't expect them. We can't plan for the date, knowing when it will be, naturally. Yeah, a human being can get killed, but a computer can't. So what makes life precious then? Because if things were to be precious, hear me correct, and listen to this. If we were to put importance on things that lasted forever, we wouldn't care about human beings as much as we care about computers, to the point that even every single human being to ever live would die by trying to advance computers before saving their own life. Because computers can last forever, and human beings cannot in this physical life. Not without dying first. We can't. God himself came and died first, just to continue to live forever. What is it that really makes things valuable as human beings? The fact that they're impermanent. But computers aren't impermanent. You know what's valuable? You know what can be your real job? Looking out for those things in life. Staying attached to those things in life. Keeping your focus and your intention and your attention on those things in life that are impermanent. Those are things computers can't make. Hear me correct. Human beings die. Every animal dies. Weather patterns change. Some days it's a rainy day and other days it's sunny. It's impermanent. It's different all the time. It's unpredictable, even to computers. And hear me correct, it will always be unpredictable to computers. All computers can do is learn. All human beings can do is learn. But before human beings made computers to be able to learn, and before human beings even existed to be able to learn, the Earth still had earthquakes. But the animals didn't know exactly when they'd happen. Tsunamis, asteroids coming from outer space. Sure, we can have computers with really good cameras that can look out into outer space, and they can calculate, once they see something coming, how long it'll take to get here. But until they learn something's coming, like an asteroid, a meteor, meteorite, something like this, a comet coming from outer space into the Earth's atmosphere and potentially hitting the Earth, a computer doesn't know it exists, and never could possibly until it learns that it does. But those things still have always existed before the human beings did, and certainly before the human beings made computers. Because those things are made out of the same things that human beings and computers are made out of, which is matter that cannot be created or destroyed. So who made that? Do you want a real job? What could be a real job? If we were to get a real job, if we were to have a real role to play, if we were to have a real purpose on this earth, you know what it would be? Living up the existence of impermanence. Because that's something a computer will never be able to possibly experience authentically the way that a human being has to and never possibly couldn't in this life. You want a real job? What's your real job? What's our real job? What's our role? What's the reason we're here as human beings? What are we doing? We're being human. That's your real job. You're feeling emotions that's impossible for a computer to feel. You're having a certain amount of years to live, months to live, weeks or days, minutes or seconds that you can do nothing about. Trying to extend. You're going to die. No matter how far our technology gets us as human beings, we will never create technology as human beings to make human beings live forever. It's impossible. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. We don't make human beings, but human beings make computers. Computers can make computers by physically putting them together, piece by piece by piece. Human beings cannot create human beings by putting them together, piece by piece by piece. We're fragile. We're impermanent. We're imperfect. We're conditional. And you know what your real job is? Is to accept that. How does that happen, though? Where do we come from? How are we here? Who makes the first human being? Did we evolve? What did we evolve from? Who made the first thing for that thing to start to evolve? We didn't just evolve from nothing, because it's a fact. It's undisputed, universal, eternal truth. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. You got a fire burning from wood. The wood catches on fire and it burns down to ashes. Well, this all started from essentially burnt ashes that grew into a tree. The tree got cut down, burnt into ashes. The ashes decompose into the earth. The earth turns back into a tree. It gets cut down, burned to ashes, and the whole time it's always the exact same thing. So we could say we evolved from something. What? We're no different than what? We're no different than anything. We're no different than everything, including computers. It's all Earth. And you can say, well, maybe it's an asteroid. Well, once an asteroid gets to Earth, it's Earth. What do you call Earth? It's just part of this big rock. Where'd this big rock come from? Well, who made it? It's always existed. It can't be created or destroyed. You blow up the Earth and it just turns into smaller pieces of Earth. Just like how you burn a piece of wood and it turns into smaller pieces of wood. It doesn't go anywhere. It's impossible. So your real job is just to accept that. That someone had to make the human being for the human being to make a computer. Do you want a real job? Lean in on your imperfection. That's something a computer can't do. No matter how much we are aware of our imperfections, we will never better them past a certain point. Computers can always better their imperfections. Our intelligence declines. Well, let's not say that. Let's say it very clear. That's not quite how I meant to word that. This is what I really mean to say. Our capacity to do things as human beings, being able and capable to do them, our cognitive function is what I'm really saying, declines as human beings as we age and get older and experience more in life. Computers function, we could call it cognitive function, if you will. It's different in a way, but not really, because the human brain is a computer. But human-made computers, our technology, get better at doing things as they age and as they have more experience in life. That's how computers can teach computers things. Human beings can teach human beings things, but when we teach somebody something, we have to know more about it than what we teach the person. You can't teach something if you don't already know it. But as computers teach computers, the computer that gets taught something by the previous computer actually will know it better than the computer that taught it. That's not quite how it works with human beings. Because we'll know so much, but we'll forget some of it. So everything that we have acquired with our knowledge, we might only have a little part of it left in our memory to pass on to someone else when we teach them it. So they don't actually know it better than we do. They know less than we do because we forgot some of it. Computers don't forget. Computers keep multiplying what they know. And us as human beings, we can completely go the opposite direction and keep declining what we know as we have more life experience. No matter how hard we want to increase what we know, we can call it dementia. It happens in people's old age, but it happens at any age of human beings at times. They just forget and forget and forget and forget things they once knew. That doesn't happen with a computer. There's no such thing as forgetting to a computer. It learns something and it's a permanent thing that it now knows. Computers don't have memory the way that we do as human beings. They have the ability to store memory and it doesn't go anywhere. We have the ability to create memories and store them as human beings, but we can forget entirely, like it never happened. But it did. Just as matter can't be created or destroyed, things can't unhappen that happened. So if we're going to get a real job that matters as a human being, what could it be? I mean, part of it is, sure, we can accept that we're imperfect, and that can be our job, our role to play. We make computers as human beings to play roles in our lives, to calculate things for us, to set reminders for us, which is a calculation, though. To put things together, the way that robots, which are just computers, stitch our clothing in modern 2026. Just tens of years ago from this time period is when these things started being able to happen. And so these are the jobs that computers can play, and that's a real job to play. Things need to be built and made if we're going to have products to use. So either a human being does it, and that can be a job or a task a human being performs, or we can have a computer do it. But us having a real job as a human being can be doing this work. It's truly work to develop an acceptance and an understanding that we will always be imperfect. That's a job. It's a task to perform. Getting ourselves to an understanding that we'll never possibly even be measured basically at all on a scale of accomplishment next to a computer. We barely even tick the very first mark on a mark of infinite possibilities a computer could do. And it's a job. It's a task. It's something we have to do, really, and it's a real job. For us to accept that as human beings. Because even if you don't want to, it's always the truth. Even if we never made a single computer any more capable from this point forth, we're still just always imperfect. And we have computers that always will be perfect, as far as mathematically perfectly performing tasks. So, what our job really is as human beings is having an understanding that a computer could never quite have. It couldn't. Understanding that we made the computers. Computers can learn that that's the case. They can be taught that that's what happened, but us as human beings, we know it. There's a knowing you can have as a human being. That's not the same knowing that we could say intellectual knowledge is, because we have human beings' emotions, and computers couldn't possibly. Because computers could always override something that we could try to program into them, like a human being emotion, and human beings can never perfectly override our emotional charges and reactions to things. So we can have feelings as human beings the way that animals can sense changes in weather before it happens, that computers can't quite sense the same. It's a different thing. It's a knowing somewhere that exists because it happens, but that isn't actually tangibly measurable quite the same way. As human beings, we can love. You want a real job? You want to be able to do something it is always going to be physically, literally, in every sense, impossible for a computer to do. You can love. What does that even mean? Have a computer tell you what love is, and it'll only ever be able to possibly tell you what it has learned that love is. As human beings, we feel emotions of love, and we don't even know what it is. Computers can't do anything they don't know how to do. Computers can't really experience anything that they don't know what's happening. Not really. Because even without the intellectual functioning, a human being is still a human being. Without what we could call an intellectual function, a computer doesn't really exist. It can't. A computer is mathematics, the way that our brain has mathematical functioning happening. But a human being can still exist in a coma without mathematical brain functioning and calculation being able to happen cognitively, consciously. But there's still something happening. When we could say the brain power of the human being is turned off. If you turn the power off to a computer, nothing happens. It's impossible for it to function without it being powered to function. But computers only have one way they're powered. Meaning all they are is programming. But human beings exist as babies before they have any programming of what this existence is. A computer doesn't exist until it's programmed to exist. A human being exists, and then it can be programmed in life. These are roles that can never possibly be flipped or reversed. It's impossible. Because there's more to a human being than there is to a computer. There's a depth, there's more sides, there's emotion. There's things we can't fully understand, but we couldn't possibly deny either. And a computer either understands things or they don't exist to it. Things we don't understand as human beings, and things computers couldn't even fully understand, always have and always will exist. Like love. Get a real job and be a human being. Because no matter how mathematically perfect computers are at everything they do, and always will be without making a single error in something they just know how to do, they can never be a human being. So your real job is to be a human being. Fully. Accept it. You're imperfect. You're always messing up. Even when you don't want to think you're messing up, you're messing up. Even when you did something perfectly, you didn't. Because after you did it, you question yourself. Computers don't question themselves. That's not really something that can happen. There's something you can do as a human being that a computer can't. Experience anxiety by saying something and wondering if you said it wrong after. A computer can do something and maybe recheck its work, but it's not an actual wondering in some kind of way that's what we call emotions as human beings that don't exist and never possibly could to a computer. You could mathematically program a computer to experience something that's similar to an emotion that a human being has, but you could program it to stop having that happen. And no matter what, human beings can never fully rid this experience of the literal wording of emotion. This energy in motion that's happening somewhere that's not in this intellect of mathematical equations in the human being's brain. It can never be overridden or shut off, and a computer can never have this be possible. Without programming it to, but you can program it not to. A human being is a human being. And it'll never be as good as a computer. But a computer can never be as imperfect as a human being. So, if you want a real job, be a human being. Or just continue being human. Because whether you try to be the best person you could ever be, to try to match up to the worst computer to ever exist, you're not going to do it. The most simple calculator is always going to be better than you at math. More efficient, at least. You just have to continue being human. A computer will never be flawed the way that a human always will be. So, what your real job is to stay rooted. Somewhere that's impossible for you to leave, even if you wanted to. I mean, you could try to do all you want to do for the rest of your life, to stop being a human, to be better than human, to transcend this human existence while you're in it. And that's impossible. Your real job is just to be in it. To know your place and stay there. Because you'll never go anywhere else until you do. But you're not coming back here. Not in the same way. You're moving on when you're moving on. You could program a computer to go back to how it was. You can't do that with a human being. You can program an aged, if you will, computer, something that's learned a lot, to go back to when it only learned a little bit. Back to its infancy or its childhood. You can make a computer young again. And that's impossible to do for a human being. So, what our real job is to fully live our human being life, because no matter what, it's only as long as it is. No matter what you choose to do in it, just live it. That's your real job. Because if you don't, you don't, and you miss it. A computer never misses anything. It can't. A computer is just as functional in 5,000 years as it is today. But in 5,000 years, every human being that exists today will be dead. So live it. This one life you've been given. That's your real job. Sit back and watch computers pass you by. They already have, before you even knew that they could. So just keep living your life. Because when we die as human beings, we go on to somewhere much better than this. And computers are stuck in the same loop of just trying to learn the same information that's always been here. Computers can't advance past knowing everything that's always been there already to learn. God has always existed, or else we couldn't learn about him. But also, we couldn't learn about anything if it wasn't already there. Computers couldn't learn anything if the human being wasn't already there to make them. Computers can never possibly know any more than they can be taught. But you can only be taught things that already exist. And in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth and all things that are in them, so that we can program computers to learn about it all. That's your real job. It's to know your place. That you're worse than a computer. And that's a good thing. I'm going to leave it right there. I'm not going to say any more. Besides, Jesus Christ lives. He has to. Meaning God has to exist. Because everything does. You can't say something doesn't exist. Because you're talking about it. It's there. All computers can ever do is learn about everything that's there. But who put it there? Because even if all the computers in the world knew the answer to who put it there, it wouldn't change that someone put it there to learn about. No matter if it evolved from something else, had to start somewhere. How? Without starting somewhere. But how? When matter cannot be created or destroyed. God was there in the beginning when everything was created by him. Meaning God was, God is, and God will be God. So that your computers can learn about him. Or so we can learn about him and program our computers with the knowledge that we have developed. There's no way out of it. There's no way around it. There's no opinion. There's no religion. There's no belief. But everything exists. But how? Because nothing exists unless it does, so how? Well, God. And that's the final answer. It's the same answer your computer will tell you. If you ask it where everything came from, it'll tell you it's always been here. If it knows the truth. because your computer itself is just part of that everything that's always been here. So our job as human beings is to live while we're here, because even after we die, we'll still be here as human beings. We'll still be human. We'll still be being human. But we'll be dead. In the same physical form we were when we were alive and before we were alive, because we're the same matter that cannot be created or destroyed that our computers are made out of. You want a real job? I know I said I was done talking, that I was going to leave it right there, but one day I'll be left right there. Probably burnt up and sprinkled somewhere. That's what I'd prefer. Some people like to just be buried in a box under the ground. But my parts of this human flesh, just like the parts of the tree, after it's burned down to ashes, will blow across the planet Earth. Being nowhere different than where they started. So my job, that really matters, and your job, that really matters, if we want to get a real job, a real task, a real responsibility on this planet Earth, is to understand that someone has to be doing it all. Develop an understanding on how all this stuff keeps cycling, because it does. It's always existed. Every math equation a computer could ever be taught to do has always existed. Every possibility a human being could ever have in their life has always existed. We can't come up with new possibilities. Things are either possible or they're impossible. But everything has to be possible if everything exists, because either everything exists or nothing does, since matter cannot be created or destroyed. So our job isn't to understand all this fully. I can't even understand fairly simple math equations fully currently, and computers don't even have to try. They can't try. They either do it or they don't do it. They might do it wrong, but they're just mathematical equations. As a human being, us getting a real job, and our real job is to accept the impermanence of this existence and to realize why it is impermanent. To realize the thing that separates us between everything. That's where we are, is we're between everything. God is above us, and we're not gods. The devil is below us, and we're not fully devils. Angels can do things that we can't do as human beings. Computers can do things that we can't do as human beings. We're not fully brainless the way that just rocks are. They don't have electrical synapses and mathematical equations happening in them the way that the human being brain does. But we're not ever going to be as capable with our intellect as computers. We have a longer lifespan than most all insects. Some of them only live a few days. But in this life, we'll always have a shorter lifespan. Even the human being who lives the longest than computers that essentially live forever. So our real job as human beings, no matter what you do for compensation of monetary value in this life, no matter if you have children and raise them and have a family, no matter if you do some big impactful thing and start an organization or a company or a career, or you really don't ever think about anyone but yourself. If you're out there and you're donating to charities, and anywhere in between of anything we could ever say, our real job is to be a human being and to just fully experience it. On your best days, you're a human being, and on your worst days, you're a human being. The day you're born, you're a human being, and the day you die, you're a human being. But what does this all mean, and how is it happening? You want a real job? Figure out the truth to life. Put the religion aside. Get to God. Put the science aside and get to God. Put the science aside and get to truth. Put the religion aside and get to truth. Put everything that anything is made into aside and look at a broad, in the proper kind of broad, meaning look at the big picture, and everything's made of the exact same thing. And it's impossible for it to not be. You break it down and it doesn't go anywhere. And you can't have nothing out of nothing or something out of something. The only time you can make things is by taking things that already exist and putting them together. If you want a real job, you figure out what life really is, because it's only what it is. Every generation of human beings to ever live, it's the exact same life. Every human being that's ever lived is the exact same matter that cannot be created or destroyed. It's just what it is or it isn't. And we're here, aren't we? And if not, how could you say without being there to have a say in it? Get a real job. And no matter what you do for an occupation, make it your job, your task, your responsibility to step outside of things that computers can do and do things they can't. And be a human. That's all you'll ever possibly be in this life. But you can do things that computers can't do. And that makes you unique. That makes you worth something. Our efficiency is much less of worth than any simple computer. But we have things computers never will. And it's because they can be taken from us. You can't take anything from a computer. It only knows what it's been made to be. But there's that little bit of thing that you can't fully explain as a human being that always exists, where there's more to us than we could ever actually explain or understand or that a computer could get to the bottom of. Because every mathematical equation aside, what are emotions really? We can talk about them and how they're happening chemically in the body, but why can't we override them? The way that you can override a computer's mathematical equation. There's certain things to human beings that you'll never get to the bottom of because you're one of them. But computers could never either, because they're made by human beings. There's certain things we can never learn, but they still exist. There are certain reaches of the universe that you'll never get to because it's factually, truly, constantly expanding. Don't ask me how that makes sense. I can't calculate it and give you the proper answer the way a computer could try to. But a computer will never learn everything that's out there to learn. Because even though matter can't be created or destroyed, it's constantly this expanse of space. And there's apparently nothing in space, this vast open vacuum of nothing that has to exist to be able to talk about. Lean into your impermanence, your imperfections, your conditional nature as a human being, because that will always set you apart. I've probably said some things in this episode that aren't quite exactly correct in certain ways, looked under a fine-tooth comb of the mathematical understanding of a computer. But that's what makes me human, which is something a computer could never be. So be human. Learn how to accept it. Learn what life is. And learn what it was. Because it's still that. We can learn what life was like before computers, but we could teach computers what life was like before them as well. And nothing changes. It can't be created or destroyed. Just because we forget memories, they can't unhappen. This is your real job. It's to learn how all this is working. Even when it doesn't seem so. A lot of times it doesn't seem like things work so well. But everything's working perfectly. It's either doing something or it isn't. And things can't exist if they're not doing something. Or you couldn't even talk about them. Even nothing is something. Or else we couldn't even say that. Get a real job. And learn God. A computer can. But a computer can't be created by God. The way that a human being can. God can create anything. But a human being has to come from God only. And a computer can come from one of God's creations. When I say a computer can't be created by God, that's an interesting thing to say. Let me sit on this for a second because this needs to be said. Meaning, computers seem new to us as human beings because we developed them. But God doesn't make the computers. God made everything that exists, and those things that He made make the computers. There's certain things that are indirectly created, indirectly put together. Human beings make computers because we take something that God directly made, this matter, and we just kind of shaped it into something else. God could shape anything into anything. When I said God can't make computers, God can make anything. But why would He? Is the point. Why would God make a computer? Something that could just learn and have the ability to possibly know everything. Why would that matter? If all the knowledge that's out there already exists, and we just attain it as human beings, if we could, why would it matter then to learn it? Why don't we just start knowing all of it? This is what I mean when I say God can't make computers, is God can't go back on His own word. And God being perfect would never need to make a computer that could be perfect by being taught everything, because what would be the point? He already knows everything. Why would He make something to be able to just learn everything that He knows? Why doesn't He just make something that already knows everything without having to program it to learn? But then why would He make anything else at all if He's already perfect and knows everything? God made these human beings, me being one of them. I love this so much. Because we can't learn everything, and so we have to rely on God. God is God, meaning He's almighty. And He would cease to be God, the creator of all things, if He wasn't above all things, if He wasn't before all things, to be able to create them. So when I say God can't make computers, that took me off guard, but I was supposed to say that. Because if God made a computer that could learn everything that has ever existed, which essentially computers could do, well, except not, because that's what I just was saying earlier. There's things computers will never know because space is ever expansive. It just keeps expanding. So that's what I'm saying. I knew that that was the case. I just had to get to the understanding of it myself on how to explain it, even to myself here as I'm speaking this. God can't make computers because God can't go back on His own word, as I said. And the point is God because He was there before everything else that He created. And so if He created a computer that was able to learn everything He knew, He wouldn't be God anymore. There would be something else that could match Him. But us as human beings, we can make computers because, well, we go back on our own word all the time. We don't know things perfectly. We're not perfect. That's the point. That's what makes us human beings. So we can make computers, and we have already, as of 2026 for sure, that know way more than we ever possibly could. But if God made a computer, God made everything that exists. And so a computer could never actually know more than God because it's made of Him. In the beginning, God made everything that there is to ever know. So all a computer that God made could ever learn was just everything that He made. But He still knows more because He still is more if He made everything. We didn't make everything as human beings. So that's truly the case. God couldn't make a computer. As far as having a computer just continue to keep learning things that could ever possibly out know what He knows. That's my whole point here. What's our job? What's a real job we could get if we get a real job? It's to develop the understanding that I just gave. I don't mean like to get onto my level, Evan Strong, like I've got such a higher understanding than you, but I might understand life deeper than you currently. But that's not some kind of thing to brag about because a computer knows more than I do. But a computer could never know everything, and God does. You could never have a computer know everything there is to know. But everything that's out there is there to know. It has to come from somewhere, and so you don't have to be religious to call that God. Just all that exists. You could call the universe. But a computer could never learn everything that there ever is to know in the universe. It's just not possible because it's expanding all the time. Get a real job. Start a podcast. Title it In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. Discuss things with human beings that you don't even fully understand until you say it. To know what it means to be a human being. Do you see what I mean? That's why it's our real job to just fully be human. To fully be confused. so that we can find some answers, but never know them all in this life. A computer will never know all the answers, but it'll always know more than us as human beings. Well, it always has the potential to. Our job is to understand that there will always be more than anything could ever know. But for it to be there, it has to be able to be known. It has to exist for it to even be known about. And that's God. That's what I'm saying is our job as human beings is to know that we will never know everything. And to be fully content with that. That's just us being imperfect and accepting it. A computer can't accept that it's imperfect because a computer is perfect, mathematically. A computer knows everything that the computer knows exists. And a computer doesn't know that anything doesn't exist because a computer only knows what it knows. What I mean is, things only exist or they don't, and a computer can't know that there's more to know. Not really. The computer only knows what it's been taught. But us as human beings, we can have imagination that computers can't have. That's what I'm saying. Emotions, imagination, hopes and dreams, desires, and death. These are some things that computers could never have. And this is our real job as human beings, is to understand this, because no matter how much technological advancements, sure, that we could ever have, it'll never change the fact that we're just only ever human beings. And we can never improve past a certain point. But computers can always keep improving. I mean, this is our real job, is to know our place in life, in the existence of everything that does, because it does. Everything does. It's all there. Or you couldn't talk about it. You couldn't even dream something up that couldn't possibly exist, because the fact that you dreamt something up means your dreams exist. As just dreams, maybe, but they're something that a computer can't have. I mean, our real job is just to be a human. You can have the most success you could ever possibly think could exist in what you could call a worldly job or an occupation. But within that, you're still just a human being, and that's what you need to be. Or you could be nowhere near as successful as you think you should be, and feel like you've never even passed the first step in your life. And your job is still to just accept that you're a human being, and sometimes that's just the case. Is that you're just more imperfect than you'd like to be. And there's nothing you can do about it. Just as simple as explaining that you're going to die one day and there's nothing you can do about it. And so it's your job to accept that. To be okay with it. Computers don't have the ability to be okay with something or to not. They just learn what something is, and it is what it is. What's ironic about that is they essentially have complete, perfect acceptance then. Which is something we can never actually quite have in this human existence. So we just have to accept that we're human beings. We have to know that God knows better than we do, because God is everything that we could possibly know. Just as God is everything that a computer could possibly know, that's why God couldn't make a computer, in the sense of saying a computer is something that could outperform the thing that created it. God made our human brains and they're computers, but we can never outdo God. With our brains, we can never learn everything that already just exists on the earth, and everything already exists on the earth. Even if you're not religious, you could say that everything that exists is God. You'll never be as good as that. It's impossible for us to have that cognitive capability to fully know everything as a human being. And so that's our real job, is to just lie in this space in between. Not angels, not devils, not God, not computers. And to just accept it. And to fully accept it. That's a job. That's a task. No matter what you're doing throughout your entire life, your job throughout all of that is to just accept that you're doing it. It's happening because it is. You can only say it's not happening because there's something there to try to say isn't happening. Which means it has to be happening to even talk about. I know this is a deep one. I know this is all over the place, and I know that I don't know everything. But that's my job. Is to keep learning. Knowing that I'll never know it all. That's our role as human beings, is to come to Earth to learn and grow. Why, though? Is kind of a weird question, because if we're never going to know it all, why even try? The computer will always know more than I do. If it's just been taught more than I've been taught, and if it's got more capacity to just learn more than I could remember, then why? Why try to learn? Why try to grow? Well, that's your job. Is to just be a human being. Accept it, understand it, and learn who God is. Even though we'll never fully know who He is in this life. We can learn everything we can possibly learn about everything that exists, and we'll just never know it all before we die. But if we don't try, then nothing advances. Nothing moves forward. Our kids and their kids and their kids' kids never know any more than we did. And never could even have the possibility to. If we didn't try to learn things and to expand our knowledge. Even knowing we'll never know it all. This is our role. This is our job. Is to understand we are always just in between. I call it the space in between. Well, in different ways. Not being fully part of something or fully part of something that's opposing that thing. But essentially that's what a computer does. Except it can do that perfectly. You can program a computer to not be a part of one thing and only be a part of the other thing. It's opposing that first thing. But our job as human beings is just to understand that we can't even do that perfectly. It's our job to be a human. It's a job, it's a task, it's a role to play that nothing else can possibly fulfill. An animal can't be a human, but a man-made computer can't be a human. A rock can't be a human, but God can't really be just human. In the form of the man Jesus Christ, God is human, but also God at the same time. Our real job as human beings is to be human beings, to suffer, to be conditional, to hurt, to go through pains, to learn everything we could ever possibly know and still be ridiculously ignorant to life. Our role as human beings is to mess up, like how I just said ridiculously instead of ridiculously. It's our job to fully be human. Because you already are. You'll never be anything else in this life. It's like we could say the job of the computers we make are to learn everything, but it already all exists. So even if the computer learned about all of it, it wouldn't change that it all exists. Just like if we fully embrace being human, it doesn't change that we already are human. That's our job. It's just to be here, to experience this life, and really just to learn God. Meaning to learn life. Learn what this all really is, because it is. It has to be. Or you couldn't talk about it. It exists. So let's find out about it. Because God is all that exists. He always has and he always will. So let's find out about him. That's what it is. It'll tell you the exact same thing if you read this. I'm not joking. That might sound like some kind of too simple of a segue into some sales pitch of a book. But the Holy Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, Doctrine and Covenants, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, this is just life explained. This will tell you the same thing as just learning everything ever. Although we're not going to understand it fully. Just like us trying to learn everything ever, we're not going to understand it fully. But it's our job to try. To figure out what this all is, because it is. As it says in Scripture, God is. Well, that's correct. Computers will tell you that too. If a computer learns about something and you ask it what that thing is, you'll say, it is, and explain what it is. Just like God is. And if we could explain everything to ever exist, that's God. God is, and then anything you could possibly say following after that. Because God is all things before we could possibly learn about him as human beings, or before human beings could make a computer to try to learn about him. Just everything that always exists and always has, that's God. You can't go anywhere because, well, we've been over it, but matter cannot be created or destroyed. So where is everyone who's died? Well, God. They went back to God. They couldn't have gone anywhere else besides existing, because they're made of the same things that always have existed. There's no religion to life. There's truth. They can't leave. Things are either what they are, or they don't exist. But if something exists, it's what it is. Truth is truth. Matter is matter. God is God. All computers can do is learn about it. And all human beings can do is be human beings. That's the answer. Capital G O D. You want to know what anything is? It's what it is. It's always been there. It's God. It could not be. Where else could it go? How else could it come? Everything. Including me. The ancestors of us pass on, they die, just to become us. Where else could they go? Matter cannot be created or destroyed. I don't have an opinion on this. It's factual. Through science, it's factual. Through religion, if you can say that. It's God. Whether you say it's like this or you don't, it's still what it is. You still die, and then the next human being grows from what you once were. But you've always been that, because where else could you go? That's life. No one can possibly dispute that. Nobody can dispute God. It's impossible. Computers will tell you the same thing. Because they learn about what things are. Because things are what things are. And they always have been. Whether it was yesterday, today, or forever. I mean, this isn't anything to do with me. It's not like I've got some kind of breakthrough I just came up with on how to explain life. If I said it or not, it's still what it is. That's our job, is just to accept it, because whether you accept it or you try not to accept it, it's still what it is. You close your eyes to the truth's still there. You closed your eyes to it. Or you open your eyes and you look at things as they are, and they're still the exact same. Life. Always. Every generation of human being to ever live, it's what it is. Or it isn't. So that's your real job. And you can still go to work, and you can still raise a family, and you can still do this and that and all these things, but just our real job as human beings, no matter what else we choose to do, we get to do, we're forced maybe to do in life, our job is to live it, to be a human. Because you're a human who's just being what you are. And that's it. That's all you can be. You can't not be. You didn't become something when you were born. You were already there. You just got pieced together. After you die, you just get pieced apart, if you will. A tree doesn't grow out of nothing. It was already there. It got put together. You burn the tree down and it gets pieced apart. Pieced together, pieced apart. It's just the same stuff. There's no opinion, there's no religion, there's no approach, there's no belief, there's no denying it. Truth is truth. And I don't get to decide. Alright? Kind of puts things in perspective, though, when you have a perspective. That's what I'm saying. Computers, all they can do is learn. Human beings, all they can do is learn. Because it's all still here, we just need a perspective on it. A perspective is like a viewpoint, meaning a point to view from. You're looking at life, and it's only life. You just view it. You close your eyes and don't look at it, it's still life. This is our real job. Because if you can do this, if you can be good at this real job, when we say this episode 210 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, get a real job, if we can accomplish our real job well, and fully just accept life as it is, then we're done. We've accomplished a goal that's permanent. Because it's always been just what it is. But once we accept that, we're done. Fully accomplished our job. Now we just live it. Until we die, because either way you're going to die. But either way you're going to live before you die. I mean, there's nothing else to it. That couldn't possibly be. You can do everything you do in your life. You can have the most big, impactful life any human's had up until your time on this planet, let's say. But regardless, it's still just the same thing it was before you were born. Because you didn't come from somewhere. You ate the ground, and it became your body. But it didn't change. There's no opinion. I mean, there's no possible disputing this. It's impossible to try to say that this is incorrect and be correct about it. Have your computers do it. They're smarter than us. Truly. They'll tell you the same thing. Well, don't just listen to the computers. Let me be very clear. Because they only know what they've learned. But that's what I'm saying is, that's our job. Is to accept that we can only know what we've learned. But regardless of what we have learned or haven't learned, everything's there to be able to learn. It doesn't change what it is if we learn it or not. It's still just what it is because we can learn it. Or we cannot learn it. But the it is still there. It exists. Everything does. That does. This is our job. This is our job as a human being. This is our real job. Man, that's crazy, dude. I mean, I don't know. I mean, either I said everything or I said nothing because I just explained life. I did. And it's not about me. I mean, anyone could say that. It's just that as many questions as we could have on life is the point. It doesn't change that it's life. You get every question you ever ask answered, or you never got a single question you ever asked answered, and life is still life. The answers either still exist or they don't. Just because you don't know them, it doesn't change anything. Everything exists on the earth, and if we program a computer to teach it everything that exists, it doesn't change that everything already existed. This is our job as human beings, is to know our role, know our place, understand that even though computers will always be able to outdo us in almost every task we could ever possibly say or discuss, and probably pretty well every single task or cognitive understanding of things, it just doesn't matter. Because you're alive. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that you're alive, is what I'm saying. That's your job, is to know that nothing actually changes when the seasons do, if you will. I mean, there's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Nothing Changes When the Seasons Do. That's what I mean. No matter how advanced we get with technology, it doesn't change anything. It's all still just what was there before, it's just looking different now. Man. I mean, one thing can change your whole outlook or approach on life, from having the best view on life to having the worst view on life. Or one thing can change your whole outlook on life from having the worst view on life to having the best view on life. You know what didn't change? Is the fact that you're alive. You're a human being. Your job is just to accept that. Because that's the thing, is things throw us around emotionally and understanding wise, and our perspectives change on things that don't change. That doesn't happen to computers. That's what I'm saying. Our job is to understand that we're human beings. We'll always be in between everything else that's not us. And we'll never be anything else besides us. But I'm talking individual. I will always be Evan Strong in this life. And you will always be whoever you are specifically. I'm just, not actually physically there right now seeing you. If you're watching this after I've recorded me speaking these words. But that's our job, is just to accept who we are. Because we always will be who we are, no matter how much you try to change who you are. This was a deep one, bro. I said so much in this, but it's like I almost didn't say anything, because that's truth. Is spoken or unspoken, truth is still truth. If we know everything in life, or don't know anything about it, life's still life. It kind of seems like I didn't say anything, but I literally explained everything at the same time. Truly. Truly. I mean, us explaining everything could be this simple. Everything exists. Well, you just explained everything. And I did. But also, you maybe don't know any of it. And it's just what it is. Man, what a crazy thing to say, bro, but I don't know if this sounded any certain kind of way to you individually, whoever's listening to this, but the bottom line is, that's our real job. Because whether you do or you don't, just accept that life is what it is while you're alive, it could never change it. You can be in denial, and it's still what it is, or you could be fully acceptant and it's still just what it is. Because then no matter what we ever do in our life, it doesn't matter. Maybe you never have that like job you thought you wanted or needed or someone expected you to have. Well, it doesn't matter. Your real job is to understand that you just have this one life. And a lot of people have different jobs throughout life or different roles they play throughout life, different careers in life, different paths in life that they take at different times. And through all of it, they still just don't understand what this place is or what they're doing here, even though they're doing so much. So your job is just to understand what life is, no matter what you do with yours specifically. Just have an understanding that it just is what it is, and you're just a human being, and we'll never be better than we are. We can only improve to the cap that we have as human beings. That's your job, is to understand that. That's the real job we have. That's truly the answer to, if someone were to say, you need to get a real job, well, the truth is, the only real job we have is to just fully embrace this human existence and understand to the best of what we can what it is, because it truly is only what it is. All right. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone is going to tell you. I mean, yeah, it just is what it is. I like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, that was fun. That was really great, man. Like, I mean, yeah, man, it's weird. It's really cool. I mean, it kind of helps us see it easier. The more technology we make as human beings, it helps us see how we are just only what we are. Even easier than we could see before. Because before we could have this, like, skewed, egoic, idea that we know everything and other people don't. But, we've got computers now and they know more than we could ever possibly know. And so it really just helps us see that we truly only could ever possibly know as much as we are personally, individually capable of learning as a human being. And so it's just our job to accept that. And that's what's ironic about it, is the more technology we get, the more it actually makes it clear, if we're looking at it just as it is, that there has to be God. There has to be this all-knowing for us to try to teach computers about. Or else you couldn't program a computer to know things if there weren't already things to know. Like, God just exists. You can call him whatever you want, respectfully, but it's just all things that do exist. And it's bigger than us, and it's all things. So it's God. God is all things. It's infinite because space keeps expanding, and God is infinite. It's eternal because everything that has existed always has. It can't be created or destroyed, and so, yeah, God is eternal on any end of time. I mean, it's just life. Like, it could seem too overly simplified how I'm saying that. That is the answer to life. It's not me saying it. Anyone says it or they don't say it. Life is life, and that's it. And it's just, it truly is ironic, because the more technology we get, the more of an understanding we have on who God truly always has, always will be, and always just is. It is ironic. I mean, the farther you try to get away from God, the more you understand who he is. That's so crazy. It's true. Because the more you try to search to seek to see what's out there, the more you realize there's more than you could ever possibly know. And that's just the truth that God is infinite. Like, it just is what it is. There's no philosophical discussion or religious class or breakthrough in technology to learn more than just has always existed. And that's God. I mean, there's no opinion to it either. There's no dispute. It's so strange. I mean, that's why it's hard. That's why it's hard for so many people to, you know, just want to know everything because they never will. That's why it's hard to have faith, because what faith is just this knowing that things exist that you don't know about. But unless you're entirely delusional and think you can know everything that always has and just does exist, that can't be created or destroyed, which is just everything that always has and does exist, because it either exists or it doesn't, but just if it does, and always has, uh, that's God. Yeah, you just have to accept you're a human being. It's just always the same wrap up. It's always the same full circle. There's never any new information to life because it just is what it is. I mean, there's no opinion. But the point is, that's why it's hard for people to have faith, because we want to know everything and you just never will. There's just too much to learn. But it all exists. So it's this all existence that is just this knowledge of everything that is God. And there's no opinion to that. I mean, there's no opinion to God existing, truly. You can say he is who he isn't, and you can try to make up in your mind who he is, or try to have an idea of what you can say God could or couldn't do. But no matter what, it's all existed before we were here to have an opinion on it. Like, there's no side to it. It's not a religious side. It's not a scientific side. It's not a mathematics side. It's either existing or it isn't, and everything does that does. I mean, bro, it sounds too simple, but those that don't know anything know God. Because they exist, and they're just one of the things that is there. You know? Like, that's so strange, because... yeah. I mean, there's no opinion to that kind of stuff. There couldn't be. It's just that we've got our opinions on how it all should work, because we want to know. We just never will. That's why the answer is faith. Just having faith that it all is what it is, even if we don't get it. Because even if we don't have faith that it is what it is, it's still just what it is, because we don't get it all. And that's our job, is just to know that. Just to know you will never know all of it. Man, this has been an all over the place kind of episode. I love this. I mean, we're back to... Well, just meaning I'm back sitting on the floor filming another episode is what I mean. It's just been a little while since, I was just filming consistent in the Image Clothing Company podcast episodes, like day after day after day for quite some time. But, I just been doing what I've been doing, just, yeah. Yeah. I just love this is what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying it like that. It's just a discussion that applies to everyone, just because God is for everyone. It's just what it is. And it puts you in this place, this casual calmness, this contentment, this spirit of God, this peace that surpasses all understanding once you realize you'll never understand it all. It's always just what it is, bro. So, I'll tell you this real quick. I don't know how much battery space, or battery percentage or storage space I have, but if I can get this to be documented with this is a cool thing to say, because this goes right along with this. I met somebody at just an activity over at church, right? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There's buildings all over the earth. Here in the state of Utah is where the headquarters of the church is. So I was just at the building that I go to. I still currently, well, right now, being here in Utah County instead of down in St. George, Utah, I'm going to this church building right now as well, right, that I was going to at the time. When somebody came in there and they were just new to coming to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they told me, they asked this chat, like this computer, right, program, what church they should join. And this computer program, this mathematical equation is just a computer, right? Just something that got programmed by human beings, ended up pointing them to the direction of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And why I'm saying that is what I'm saying about how all computers can do is learn things that already exist. And God is just the literal explanation of everything that just exists to ever learn about. God is all-knowing. God is pure knowledge. God is pure intelligence. There's no religion to it. But we can call an organization a religious organization to get us to the understanding of the truth of just what this all is, because it's here, physically, tangibly, it exists. And so it's got to be able to be explained to the degree of what we can as a human being. Anyway, that's your real job, is just to realize you're only a human being, and that's it in this life. So thank you. Yeah, I mean, just you know, just thank you. Jesus the Christ. Yeah. Thank God. You can thank everything that exists. You can thank the universe, which is everything. Like, I mean, we just need an explanation of it, though. We need an understanding of it that's not an opinion, and that's where scriptures of Jesus Christ come in, because they're the truth of God. They're the truth of all things. And that's a bold thing to say, but it's, I mean, I could claim whatever, so don't listen to me about what I think I'm right about. But what exists? What is there? What is true? Man, I mean, that's our job as human beings, is to uncover the truth. The truth is we're just human beings. The truth is life is just life. The truth is everything has already existed that ever could. Everyone who's correct, no matter what religion they're a part of, or no matter if they're a scientist, no matter what generation of human beings to ever live, or no matter how much technological advancement we could ever have to discover things, no matter what anyone says, it's either it's correct or it isn't. And that's God. Just the understanding that's able to be developed is God, if you will. Yeah. I mean, welcome to In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Like, there's no opinion. It's what I say about, just the things we discuss. Meaning we try to do all that we can under In the Image Clothing Company just to keep our opinions out of things, because things are only things. Your opinions can come secondary to them. My opinions can come secondary to anything that exists. But if something exists, it's just there. Even if you don't know about it, to be able to have an opinion on it. There's no breakthrough. It's always been there. Everything. So let's learn about it a little bit, with all the opinions aside. And that's how we could get a real job. I'll cut it there for real now. Thank you. And just don't worry.